Jess here from JesusWired, and I am here with the guys from Right Hand Shade. I'm so excited to chat with them today about their new album, Rise. Guys, can you please introduce yourselves for our wonderful audience?
Absolutely. I'm Matt, and I do vocals.
I'm Kevin, and I play drums.
You next, Nick.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Sorry.
Nick, and I play rhythm guitar.
And I'm Taylor, and I play lead guitar.
So nice to meet you all. Next time I'll give us like a clockwise or something to go with. But it's so nice to officially know you all by name now. Thank you for catching up with me today.
Thank you for having us. It's great to meet you, Jess.
It's lovely to meet you too. So this could be a loaded question, but for people who have never met you before, who is Right Hand Shade?
So, anybody want to go?
No, that's all you.
All right. So, Right Hand Shade. So we are a Christian pop rock with a little bit of surf rock edge band from New England. We are New England born and raised, and we have been together about 5 years. We just did our second studio album, and so we're super excited about that. And we've been through ups and downs, I guess, a lot like everybody, but we're just excited to see where God has us and where He's taken us.
Nice. Very well answered, thank you. I love the fact that you blend pop, rock, Christian, and surf in the one. It makes me very excited. I lived in Florida for a short time, and my favorite band is Switchfoot. So all of that makes me very, very happy.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, we love Switchfoot.
Can you tell me about the album Rise? How this came about in the middle of COVID and lockdown and all sorts of random stuff? And anyone can answer that would like.
Man, I mean, like, Rise. So originally, I guess we weren't really thinking of like Rise in terms of like the concept and everything, like amidst COVID. It was really just kind of like, all right, like we're in unprecedented times, like nobody's ever seen anything like this before. Like, how do we keep moving forward with like what God has given us, you know, what He's called us to be faithful to? And so we just kept meeting, and we just kept writing and coming up and trying to use the time that we had as best as possible to try and just keep moving forward and keep writing music. And then as we continued to write, and we went into the studio and we recorded and everything, and we're like, all right, like, what do we call this? And it was just kind of like one of those things that like you just see God, even though you didn't really know how it was going to work out, like God just weaving this like consistent theme through all of the songs. You know, when we listened to all of the tracks back the very first time that we got them, we're just like, what do we call this thing? And then the theme of like Rise just kept coming to us over and over again, and I just kind of like illuminated that. It was like, you know, like from the ashes you'll rise, like, or like maybe you're in a dark place, like. So I don't know, it was kind of a cool realization, I think, for all of us to kind of like come to, you know.
Yeah, nice. What was it like creating an album with that theme and that hope during, like you said, a really unprecedented couple of years when it's hard to find hope at times?
We got the opportunity to work with Chris Hoisington from the Brothers McClurg, and we went to New York and recorded our album there, which was such a blast. It was so much fun. And it was also a crazy time to go to New York because of all the lockdown stuff, and we had to quarantine and all this. Take these songs and dive deep and just kind of pull them all apart and decide, what do we really want to get out of this album? And we explored different sounds. We really entered into the creative process, tried to have open minds and just try stuff we'd never thought of before. We threw in all these different instruments that we really didn't plan on playing, but just turned out to have all these cool textures and just really amazing sounds just through that creative process and working with Chris. And it really, I think, really kind of the way that the theme emerged throughout the whole process of just having hope and having a joy to look forward to is that under the surface, through all the work and through the process, God was always just, I think, speaking to each of our hearts that, like, I have a hope for each of you, a future, something that I'm going to do through this, and something that you can't even see, but your job is just to be faithful to what I've given to you and place it before me and do your best with what you have to work with and let me take it and do what I want with it. So that's just kind of what we're trying to do. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Nice. Kevin, can you tell me a bit about the lead single that you guys dropped a few months ago now? Can you tell me about the single Free?
Yeah, I can hear you better now. Yeah, so Free was probably one of my favorite tracks. As soon as we got it back after recording it, we got like the rough mixes back from the album, and Free was definitely the first one that I listened to, and I was like, oh, this is sitting exactly where we wanted it to sit. There's a lot of cool different textures that we got started recording the drum track by me hitting a fan and like just
Yeah, and like a pipe and stuff.
yeah, and a bunch of other like random stuff, and we put like effects on it and looped it in different spots, and it turned out being pretty cool. I really like Free.
Yeah, nice. Why did you choose that as the opening single of all the songs that you could choose?
To me, if I were asked this question, I would say that it was probably the most well-rounded, and I think like start to finish, it was the song that kind of encompasses a little bit of everything. Where it kind of starts off a little bit like mellower and then builds into a more energy by the end. And yeah,
Nice. Nice. A wonderful
yeah.
answer. Thank you. I appreciate it. Can you guys tell me, I'll go one by one. Do you have a favorite track or a most memorable track on the album that you would love people to like really pay attention to when they listen to it? We'll start with you first, Matt.
Okay. I think my favorite, it might be the song "This I Know," and that's because I love well, it's just fun to sing first off, and it's for me the message of that song, kind of what it's about, and the heart of it. It's just all about that whatever we're facing when we are dealing with something like a global pandemic, way beyond our comprehension. I feel like the ground is just moving beneath our feet. We can hold us that God is going before us, that He has a hope and a future for us, and that He ultimately He knows already, and we can rest assured in that. So I think that one probably is my favorite, and love the groove of it too. It's a lot of fun to just kind of mellow out to and chill.
Taylor, what about you?
Man, it's such a hard question because I feel like there's different songs and different moments in different songs that are my favorite for different reasons. The one that I keep coming back to all the time, which honestly is most of them, but I love Free. There's something about it that like there was a song off the first album that I keep coming back to. And this one, it reminds me of like the similar feeling that I had when I heard the very first single off of the first album, where I was just like, oh my gosh, like to us to do what we just did, like it was one of those moments off the first album, and it was a very similar moment for this album when we heard Free come out for the first time, that it was like, in a weird way, it was just like, oh my gosh, like, is that really us? Like, or is that like some other band that like just stole our song and I'm like listening to it on, Apple Music or something like that. Like it was just a really like surreal, but at the same time like incredibly like humbling moment. Like, oh my gosh, like, God, like thank you so much for like, you know, putting me in this position that you would use me in such a way that is so much crazier and more fulfilling than anything that I could have ever thought of potentially doing. Like there's no place that I would rather be than doing this kind of stuff. And so I just, yeah, that one is just like, it's so good.
Nick, what about you? What's your favorite track on Rise, or your most memorable?
Ooh. I feel like it's also a super hard question because there's too many that I like. I would say overall, probably With Expectancy is my favorite. I just think that song has such a good groove to it, and Matt's vocals on it are just so killer on it. So I like
Yes.
that's probably
Chef's
that's probably
kiss.
my favorite one. It's close with that one and Free. I do love Free too. That's definitely really good. So either one of those.
Free was clearly a really solid choice for lead single. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Kevin, what about you?
My favorite one off the album is probably With Expectancy as well. I love the drum part I got to play to that one. I know I'm copying you, but I love the drum part that I got to play in that one. And Matt's vocals are ridiculous. He hits like the most insanely high note for the most insanely long period of time every single chorus, and it's very impressive. But it comes across as like,
sorry.
Oh, sorry, what?
Sorry, how does that note go live?
Oh,
well, that's
Matt
very
is
interesting
the most flawless singer.
Yeah, you're very kind, but that's like the hardest song to sing. It's definitely the one you have to kind of like gear up for, and I'm always like, okay, we made it through that one in a live set.
No, lately you've always been like, can we please can we do that one first so I can
let's
like
do that one early.
Get that note out of the way, please.
Yeah, that's not one to save for the end.
I'm really curious. You guys, so obviously you're from New England. Do you live in the same city, or do you live all sort of in a different region to come together when you perform or practice?
They all live pretty close. I know like Kevin and I, we live in the same town. And then Matt's just over the border on the other side of Massachusetts. Nick is the only one that's a little bit more of an outlier.
I'm like pretty close to the coast on Mass, so it's about like, I think as of now, I think it's about a 40-minute drive for me to get to our practice spot and anyone else's house. So
yeah, that's about what it is for me to get to Melbourne. So I get that. Yeah. I'm just super curious, like when COVID happened and lockdown happened, I know things were a bit different in America, but you guys would have had to work, I imagine, a lot harder at keeping up your relationship and the consistency. Practice, I imagine, would have been a little bit more difficult. And then even putting together an album with the extra element of how do we negotiate everyday life plus COVID, plus a little bit of distance. Do you think that in a good way, like changed the intensity of the record in any way, or like shaped what you were doing in a slightly different way to what Rise would have been if we hadn't been going through this, or if you guys had like lived together?
I think partly actually because of everything going on, I feel like it's almost like because there was more stuff going on, we were actually able to focus more on the music, if that makes sense. Because I feel like that's a weird way of saying it, but I found that, at least for me personally, going through like practicing every week and developing new songs together, I found that when kind of like the world stopped when COVID happened, I found I was just super focused on music as soon as that happened. So for me personally, I found that like the song development process was just so much better because I was so like, that was one of like my main focuses. I wasn't worried about like all the other stuff that I usually had going on in day-to-day life, because realistically we were all just home. So
yeah,
I enjoyed it for like the song development process piece of it, just because I feel like we were able to really focus on what we were doing.
Did you guys have a similar experience, or?
Yeah, for sure. Music was such a refuge, like during that like whole period of time. I mean, like life more or less like kind of just stopped. At the time I was working in a school district. I was in special education as an assistant, and so like we just went straight remote, like online and everything. And so like I was just home all the time, and then all of a sudden summer came around and there was no school or work, there was no shows. So it was all music. Like it was just such a perfect time to just dive right into like the creative process, like prepare the songs for like the upcoming album. I started taking, guitar lessons and everything, and just like really like throwing myself at like, just trying to make myself, better in that regard, and improve. And we met all the time, and practiced, and wrote, and there was nothing else really that was happening. And in a way, I don't want to say this and disregard the craziness that was happening in the world, but for us as a band and stuff like that, it was a good, I would say it was a good time for us. I feel like God really used that time to like help us to prepare for like what was next, which is the album that's out now. So
when I think about New England, I don't think of it like Nashville. Like Nashville is like Bible Belt Christianity, or like Texas, where it's just like everyone's talking about God and Jesus like all the time. And as an Australian, it's very strange for me whenever I visit. When I think of New England, I just think of like a bunch of people, lots of schools, probably a few Christians and churches spotted here and there. But in my experience, you've got to search a little bit harder for them. Why did you guys choose to become a Christian band and be in the Christian music industry based on where you live? Like, why not go alternative or something like that? Why did you choose to be in this industry?
It was really just the way we started the band was I led worship at the church where Kevin and Taylor attended. I met them when they were actually both still in high school, and worked with them closely on the worship team. Then I met Nick in a different role. And so when I started the band, I kind of thought back, like, where am I going to find like musicians of like, the right heart and the right just mission, and who want to just chase after this hard to impact a region that really needs to be impacted, that just really needs to hear the truth of the gospel. And also that had the chops, just as musicians to be able to do this well. And these are the guys that I was really just blessed. I could just kind of hand pick my band. And so I went to them and I was like, guys, you want to give this a shot? Let's give it a try. Let's see what can happen. And we just ran after it, and we pushed and worked really hard. And it's been really crazy, really amazing to see the doors that God's opened. There's things that we never could have done on our own. It might seem like, and I know it seems like to a lot of the rest of the world, that like New England doesn't have a huge Christian music scene, but there's actually like several pretty big festivals here that we get the privilege of playing. This is the first summer we've had the opportunity to play on the main stages, so that for us is a big step. We're super excited about that, and it's been a growing and stretching kind of awesome thing already. And when you're in a region that just really needs to hear the gospel, if we don't step up and do it, then somebody else is going to do it. God's going to use somebody to do it to reach the region in which we live. And not to say that we can't branch out, and we already are. We're heading down to Kentucky in September to play down there, and starting to kind of branch out to other areas of the country. But New England is where we are from. It's our home, and it's where we've been able to start our ministry and just see God move in amazing ways. So it really is where we're always going to come back to. It's our heart. In the morning, the sun's gonna shine.